I am going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will note that all board members are present with the exception of Pat Bodie and Calvin Corridors. And I will start off and entertain a motion to accept the minutes from our April 25th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, report from the secretary. Joe.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
All I have to report is that there's new correspondence from Mr. Giardine in your package.
Okay.
But I will take a moment to thank Christine Enright for putting together all our paperwork once again. We couldn't do this without her, so
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Joe.
welcome.
Okay, we'll move right on to our report from the program manager. Chris.
Morning.
Morning.
How's everybody?
Doing well.
Ready for a weekend?
Yeah.
Good. So just want to touch on a few things this morning. Everybody has the report in front of them. I'll start in the upper left like I usually do under project procurement. We have, in terms of Fowler bids, those are out. We actually extended the bid at the request of the bidders. Gave them about another week to put that together. Didn't really care to, but that was what seemed to be required to do so. So those bids are now going to be due on the 30th. The Henniger, just to touch on that, we're looking, just to give you an idea, I listed Henniger, Clary Elms, Danforth, and Fowler Interior, just to give you some context of where we're going. So Henniger would be, right now, plans to be in November of 19 is the current plan to put that out for bid, followed by, in the first quarter of 2020, Clary Elms, Danforth, and Fowler Interior is the plan. So they'll be staggered. We're obviously not going to shotgun them all out at once, but it'll be a staggered bid there as we move forward. Under the project financing component, I guess I would just, we're in motion now for the ban. We have a plan in place for that for the Fowler site. We anticipate starting that T2B borrowing process. And as I mentioned last month, that starts with the JSCB and then the school board for presentation of the revised financial plan. That will be rolled out in August, in September in terms of the approvals, the presentation and approvals for that. And then that will go to the Office of State Comptroller in October, November for their review, because it has to be in 90 days prior to us going out for that financing for the T2B. So that's where we are with that. Design and approval process. Henniger, been one that's really, it's taken a bit here to get this one approved. They've put a fair amount of comments on that, but we do have the MEP approval, which is good, and the architectural approval we should have shortly here, and have been responding to that. I also mentioned in here that the budget reconciliation at Henniger is still ongoing due to a lot of the comments that we received during the review process. That's added some scope to the project. We're looking at that to kind of determine how we're going to reconcile that. In all likelihood, that may be one of the buildings that we expand the budget. I remember we had spoken about that at the previous meeting, that over the next few months we'll be coming to you with some recommendations on maybe reallocation a little bit, expansion of some of the building budgets, and maybe reduction of some of the others. So that'll be one that'll be on the docket for that discussion. And then Clary and Elms, as I said, we'll be reconciling those in the third quarter of 19. I don't have a significant budget issue there. It's just once we get those ready to go to bid, we'll whittle those down and make sure we've reconciled everything in those two. Under construction update, there's two that I did want to mention. They're not listed here, but at Corcoran we've mobilized over there. The general contractor has got a trailer over there and got some storage stuff and starting to mobilize over there and prep for start of work. And Fowler Roof isn't listed here, but Fowler Roof is ongoing. When we can dodge the raindrops, we've been over there continuing efforts on Fowler Roof. Fraser, just to touch on quickly, predominantly we're down to some corrective site work that we have to do over there in the parking lot. And again, that's one that now that we can start to get into some consistent weather, we'll get over there and get that finished up and then get that dialed out and final paid. Blodgett's ongoing. We're going to start the windows here in June, start the window replacement, which will be nice to see going in over there. Grant continuing efforts and kind of ramping up here to get a plan together for the opening. Once school gets out, then we've got a fair amount of work at Grant to do in terms of the roof and interior and continued interior renovations in the bathroom and the pool renovation. Huntington continues kind of the same position. Had some issues with the pool deck over there and the drainage on the pool deck. Working through that at the moment. In Bellevue, I'm sorry, I jumped over Ed Smith. Ed Smith continues to be a focus for us, that we're keeping an intense focus on that. Efforts have been amplified over there. I think most noticeably the windows. We've got a couple crews working on windows, 2 simultaneous crews, and of removal and replacement of the windows over there, and noticeable improvement. Looks very nice, and it's actually the picture in the upper right in the center is the lower portion of that of the old windows and the upper portion of the new windows. So I just wanted to give you the contrast between the two, so we don't have those blank off panels up above the windows like they did previously. And at Bellevue, I think, again, that's really has got a lot of momentum behind it, and we're doing well over there. We're still a bit focused on the lower level, most specifically related to the mechanical systems, getting those connected. The arrival of the air handling units and some of the mechanical equipment was later than anticipated, and so now it's a push to make sure we get everything connected. But we're working on that one. Fowler Roof, as I said, we're moving forward as it weather permits. In the center, under critical constraints, the financial plan, as I mentioned, has to be submitted in the third quarter, and I kind of gave the layout of how we'll get there with that in August and September in terms of presenting that. Fowler site work, right now, as I said, we're moving forward. We extended the bid. We know we have 2 bidders at a minimum. We've canvassed probably 20 or 30 individuals that are individual firms as a part of that effort to try and get there. It's just the market continues to be definitely a challenge when it comes to that. So, but
we expect 2 bids, though?
We expect 2 bids, yeah. Yep. And have been getting...
We're in the first phase.
Right. And, yeah, and have been getting a pretty steady flow of questions, which means folks are focused on it and asking questions, so it's good. Ed Smith, as I mentioned, is one that we continue to be focused on. I have been meeting on a regular basis with the contractor, and they remain steadfast in their commitment to saying that they're going to get there. So we'll continue that. Okay. Change conditions, we have had a couple of those. We're working through them in terms of discovered conditions at a couple of the buildings, but we're working through that and going to gain some proposals for that, and we may have to go to the state for a couple of those because they're over 35, but we have a process in place, and we'll see. No issues at the moment. Bellevue, I think we touched on, and comprehensive plan budgets in terms of review and adjustments. We're thinking that'll probably June, July, August, we'll have some furthering conversation. I think that the pivot point there is we want to get the Fowler bid in, find out where we land with that, definitively in terms of the cost, and then kind of gauge where we want to go with other adjustments.
Okay.
So that's about all I have. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
For me. Anybody else?
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Very good. We'll move on to the financial statements.
Good morning.
Morning.
If you have the financial statement in front of you, I'm going to start down on page 5 with the statement of net position. Just a couple highlights this month. We did have vendor payments that were made this month, along with additional investment income that came in. And the biggest event was that we had the trustee intercepted the district's state aid to set aside for future debt service payments in the amount of about $13 million. So that was the biggest event for the month. But at the end of March, if you're looking at page 5 at the statement of net position, you'll see that in phase 1 and phase 2 cash, we're up to about $101 million, and the biggest reason for that increase, as I said, is because of the state aid intercept. Also because of that, we have the reduction in vendor payments. So overall, we're up by $8.3 million as compared to the February statement. The total liabilities at the close of March is $238 million. And let's see, that does include the bonds payable for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects, along with the $15 million that we do have outstanding in bond anticipation notes for Phase 2. Also, at the end of March, the unaudited total net position of $24.8 million, which you'll see there at the bottom of the page. You'll notice there in the debt service column, that's where we're handling and holding on to the monies that were set aside for future debt service payments. Those debt service payments are going to be made in May, next month, actually this month, okay? But they'll be reflected in that May financial statement, along with November will be our next debt service payment for both Phase 1 and Phase 2. So that's what we're holding that money for, okay? Page 6 is the statement of sources and expenditures. And the Phase 1 year-to-date sources have remained the same since February. However, the only thing that we did have in March, it does reflect a vendor payment for legal services of $1,080 that you'll see there that was approved by the board in February. And the Phase 2 year-to-date sources through March increased by $113,000 for a total of $1.2 million in earned interest on investments. The year-to-date expenditures through March totals $36.8 million in capital outlay, and which increased by $5.1 million from February statements due to vendor payments. And I'm going to move on to the cash flow, which is on page 7. Now, the cash flow statement does reflect our sources and disbursements on a cash basis throughout the year. And you'll see that everything from July to March is actuals. Everything else is projected out through the end of the year. The cash flow statement does reflect that JSCB will end the fiscal year with $144 million. And you'll notice there that I have projected out in April the bond that we did in April. We'll talk a little bit more about that next month, but if you have any questions about it, I'm more than happy to answer it. We did take in $72 million, along with the $3 million that we borrowed for capitalized interest payments that will come due next year. And on the last page, this is the revenue and expense inception to date report. And this shows everything that has been spent on both projects, both phases, excuse me, from inception to date. The sources for Phase 1 in total nearly $144.2 million for Phase 1 and $133.5 million for Phase 2, and expenditures for Phase 1 $141 million, and for Phase 2 $51 million. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Nope.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. There it is. Okay, so I think we have a report from our compliance manager and a presentation.
Morning.
Morning, Lloyd. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
Does everybody see that okay? I tried to make it clear. It's a little blurry for me, but is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
looks good.
So this is basically the main sheet that includes all of the people participating on the project, all of the contractors, professional services and so forth. So what we have for our total goal is 18.67% for the minority, women 15.94%, residency 18.43%, and Syracuse students 9.96%. And the approved utilization is 15.66, and the WBE is 16.75. So far, everything continues to exceed the goal. We do have some concerns about some of the EEO that we'll show you further on in the presentation that we're working on. We are finding that a lot of the firms are not aware that their local residents can be utilized. So as we review the pay applications, we're finding a bunch of hours that are not included. So we're reaching out to them. So these numbers, it could be reflected in the numbers. So the first slide is for our professional service, MBE. 8.7 million was awarded to the minority firms, and so far 3.6 million was paid out. Also professional services on the women business enterprise, 4 million was for the WBE firms, and so far 1.7 million has been paid out. So about 42% so far. For construction, on the MBE side, about 11.3 million was subcontracted out to the MBE firms, local firms, and so far 5.2 million was paid out, so about 46% of the awarded amount. WBE, 17 million, 17.3 was awarded to the WBE firms, and 4.8 of that has already been paid out, so about 28% of the approved amount. For the hours for professional services, we have about 140,000 so far. 22,000 of that were minority, 43,000 were women, and the residents are showing 30,000 and about 17,000 for the Syracuse City School District. For the construction side, about 210,000 total hours. Of that, 44,000 of those hours were minorities. 9,000 were women, and I think there's 35 were residents, 35,000, and 18,000 were the city of Syracuse students. Also, this 9%, at the end of the slide, you'll see we're still over the goal by double digits, but the 9%, we're finding that if you have a minority woman, a lot of firms are listing them as minority, but they have the option to list them as women. So we have double digits on the minority side, so we're just educating them so they know that they could utilize them for both goals. Well, not both, one or the other.
So are we gonna recover any of these zeros?
Yeah, Day Automation is one of the firms that we found that they were paying a couple of the firms and they did not include that in any of the pay apps. So that's gonna get corrected. We just called them yesterday.
Okay.
And can I go back
Sure.
a minute? LaChase,
Helen, would you mind just using the microphone?
I'm looking at the minority in LaChase, there's zeros.
Yes.
Why?
Greg, can you explain, I think one of your firms, was it Eli, or one of your firms is no longer your minority firm?
JWA.
JW,
As of the end of this month.
okay, but your minority firm was? Eli, excuse me? EEO. So LaChase is one of the firms that received our letter. I don't know if we received a response back for the shortfall. I think that might have went to Tamara. So we're just, Tamara, so we're waiting for a response to see how we're gonna make that up.
Because they still have work to do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and at the end of the slide, you'll see some of the letters that we sent out for the EEO and MBE shortfall, and we're questioning that, but as the pay apps come in. So this is the total of everything to date. We have about 389,000 hours total for the minority, about 72,000 of that. For the women was 62,000, residents 71,000. So our totals are still exceeding the goal collectively, but as you'll see on the next slide, each of the firms that had any deficiency per their workforce projection that they sent to us, that we approved the plan for, we're questioning with dates. We're also getting an updated schedule from Turner around the 14th of June to look at the start and end dates to compare that with what we approved on the utilization plan to make sure these minority firms will be fully utilized. This is a sample of the compliance letter. We took the names out, and it's not in your packet just because we just took all the names out just for reasons, so it's not out there. But this is where all of the firms are listed. So we actually detail where they where they're short. So there's no guessing. They know exactly where they need to make up the hours. We show them the contract, and this is going to be based on the last pay app that we received. So it's about a 30 to 60 day delay, but this tells us exactly what the numbers are showing and what we show as far as meeting the goal.
So in 30 to 60 days, we should be able to know what their numbers are.
Well, it jumps up every 30. So when we get our next pay app, it will be for 2 months prior. So that still gives us time to look at what they projected, and then we can have that 2 months to figure out how they're going to make that up. We're in the middle now, roughly, so there's a lot of firms that are going to be doing some of their MBE, or minority to women, So that's going to fluctuate the number. But as far as utilization, there's a lot of firms that actually did more. So some of the percentages you might have seen was 100 and something percent or higher than that is because their approved utilization was a small amount, then they used them more while they were on site. So that affects the overall number. Individually, so far J.D. Taylor has responded, and they sent the email out to all of their firms based on the letter that we sent, letting them know where they fall short. And that was just, I think, early last week. So we'll be following up with all of those contractors to see if they need any assistance. Turner just sent us a list of 10 graduates, one of them a female, 9, I think, male, Chris? And we're going to distribute that to all of the firms that may be struggling with their EO,
Graduates from,
the EOC program.
great.
Anyway.
Same type of letter for the EEO. As you can see, it outlines every section in red where they're short. So this explains where they're at, and as you can see, the minority side is double digits, but the women's side is short. So this is where we're trying to help them realize where they place them and where they could assist them in the future. So these are a couple of the graduates of the program. Marcus worked with PAC. These are some highlights. Hughes Culture put this together for us. He was a trainee. He worked with PAC. He has now started his own business as a Syracuse certified, and we're trying to assist him working with PAC on Corcoran and Hubert Brewer with Nottingham.
Nottingham.
So Corcoran there, but that's okay.
Question?
No.
No.
We have 4 more high schools, but
Okay. And Gabrielle, also, these are just highlights that we just like to post. She's also working with CNS, and she strives to have her own architectural firm one day. So we just try to do this every report that we can, or every other report, just to display what some of the people are doing on the project.
I just liked the Joint Schools Construction Board page on Facebook. I hadn't seen that, so all of you Facebook users, make sure you're liking the page so you can keep up to date. It looks good, Victoria.
Did you want me to scroll back for any questions? No?
Any questions for Lloyd? Okay.
Okay.
Good. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We've got some resolutions here, so Joe, we're going to turn it back over to you.
Yes, thank you. We have our usual payment resolutions and then several contract awards. Resolutions begin with resolution number 23, which would be the monthly payment to Landon and Ryan.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 24 would be the monthly payment to the Turner Construction Company.
so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 25 would be the payments for the various contractors on the Tranche 1 projects.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And resolution number 26 would be the payments for the various contractors on the Tranche 2 projects.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
We now go to our different contract awards, beginning with resolution number 27, which would award a contract to Day Automation for temperature controls at Corcoran High School.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 28 would award a contract also to Day Automation for temperature controls at Nottingham High School.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
The next 2 contracts are similar to what we did for Tranche 1. The first one, resolution number 29, would award a project monitoring contract for all the Tranche 2 schools for Energy and Environment LLC.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And finally, resolution number 30 would award a Project Special Investigations and Testing Services contract to CME Associates for the Tranche 2 schools.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
What exactly does that mean, special investigations?
Right,
I'll have to defer to the program manager.
right.
It's for various inspections that are required, some required, special inspections that are required by code for us to inspect, and other things if we want them to drill into a focused inspection of something that isn't working or an issue that we have, we can engage them to do that. All like ASTM-based investigations, I understand where you're going, but it's testing. It's applying an ASTM standard.
Environmental concerns or, no environmental hazards or any of those kinds of things, when you say investigations,
Yeah, steel, concrete, soils is predominantly, but they can do a variety of testing for us. CME is pretty well versed in that. So, yep.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Any other business to come before the board?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
second.
All in favor?